ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ Hukamnama Sahib today is on Ang 656 of Guru Granth Sahib Ji in Sorat RAAG by Bhagat Kabeer Sahib Ji ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਸੰਤੋ ਮਨ ਪਵਨੈ ਸੁਖ ਬਨਿਆ ਕਿਛ ਜੋਗ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਗਨਿਆ ਸੰਤੋ ਮਨ ਪਵਨੈ ਸੁਖ ਬਨਿਆ ਕਿਛ ਜੋਗ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਗਨਿਆ ਰਹਾਉ ਗੁਰ ਦਿਖਲਾਈ ਮੋਰੀ ਜਿਤ ਮਿਰਗ ਪੜਤ ਹੈ ਚੋਰੀ ਮੂੰਦ ਲਿਏ ਦਰਵਾਜੇ ਬਾਜੀਲੇ ਅਨਹਦ ਬਾਜੇ ਕੁੰਭ ਕਮਲ ਜਲ ਭਰਿਆ ਜਲ ਮੇਟਿਆ ਉਭਾ ਕਰਿਆ ਕਹੋ ਕਬੀਰ ਜਨ ਜਾਣਿਆ ਜੋ ਜਾਣਿਆ ਤੋ ਮਨ ਮਾਨਿਆ ਕਹੋ ਕਬੀਰ ਜਨ ਜਾਣਿਆ ਜੋ ਜਾਣਿਆ ਤੋ ਮਨ ਮਾਨਿਆ Bhagat Kabeer Sahib Ji Maharaj blessing us today with this Hukamnama Sahib. Kabeer Sahib Ji begins the Shabad Santo, O saints, Man Pavana Sukh Banaya. This whole Hukamnama Sahib is talking about that spiritual stage where the mind is purified and is focused completely on Akal Purkh Vaheguru. And Kabeer Sahib Ji is describing that. So just in the beginning of the Hukamnama Sahib, I want to give a little disclaimer. What Kabeer Sahib Ji is explaining is that type of essence, is that type of experience, is that type of feeling about which Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj says कि कहो कबीर गूंगे गुड़ खाया पूछे तो क्या कहिए. If someone who cannot speak has that type of a disability that they can't speak, if they eat sugar they cannot describe the sweetness. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says in Japji Sahib Nanak Kathana Karada Sar, to speak about Vaheguru Ji, it is easier to chew upon iron. Or we hear about those people who have got to this stage, manne ki gat kahi na jaye, je ko kahe pichhe pachtaye. If someone even tries to describe this type of stage, they can never describe it fully. Japji Sahib says this. So, just before we even begin the translation, I want us all to understand that these spiritual stages are not things which can be explained, they are to be experienced. So, Kabeer Sahib Ji says, Man pavana sokh banaya. One meaning of this talk which translators like Gyani Harbans Singh Ji, Professor Sahib Singh Ji have given is that this mind was like pavan, it was like the wind. Just like the wind moves from place to place, just like the wind, sometimes it is freezing cold, sometimes it is burning hot. So firstly, the wind is ever moving. It doesn't stay still. Secondly, it is affected easily by other factors. So in the winter the wind is cold, in the summer the wind is warm, and just like the wind howls, you can hear the sounds of it on a blustery windy night. You can hear the sounds of the wind blowing. In the same way, my mind is like that. My mind falls under the pressure of external factors, gets angry, gets upset, all these types of things. It never sits still, just like the wind keeps moving. And just like the wind howls, the same way this mind howls out to me in many different ways. But Kabeer Sahib Ji says, this mind which was like the wind, sukh baniya, has now become peaceful. I have found peace, I have found happiness. Other translations of this line in the Faridkoti Steek, the Faridkot scholars, they translate this to mean Santoho man pavane sukh baniya. They translate this to mean, man means mind. And what they say is, when I focus the mind and pavane with my breath, when I meditated upon the Gurmantar, sukh baniya, that is when I got peace. And there are many different ways in which people focus upon the Gurmantar using their breath. Another translation of this line given by Sant Gyani Gurbatan Singh Ji Khalsa, Santo ho man pavane sukh baniya. Man they translate here as mantar. With the Guru's mantar, with the Guru's word, Vaheguru, this body which relies upon pavane, which relies upon breath, because everybody's bodies, they all function upon breath. The day we stop breathing is the day we die. With the Guru's mantar, this body which lives off air, which lives off breath, sukh baniya, has now found peace. And all of these translations, they add to the glory of Gurbani. How what Kabeer Sahib Ji is saying can be understood in so many different ways. Kish jog prapat ganaya. Again, this talk has been translated in many different ways. One way is this, is that now I've found this peace in my mind. Now I've become Kish Jog, somewhat worthy. And Ganya means to be counted as, Prapat. Prapat means of union. Now I've become somewhat worthy. Or now I can be considered to be somewhat worthy of union with Akal Purkh. That's one of the translations which sort of comes across in the Professor Sahib Singh way of translating this talk. And other interpretations of this line, Kish Jog Prapat Ganaya. Kish Jog. I have got some of the understanding of yoga. Now, what does yoga mean in this context? In this context, we want to take Patanjali's understanding. Patanjali says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. I'll say that once again. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Now, what does that mean? That means to focus the chit and the virtiyan, all the different parts, all the different fluctuations of the mind, to regulate them, to master them. That is yoga. Kish jog prapat ganaya. Ganaya can mean to do vichar. Now I've learnt some of this path of how to be united. Yoga also means to be united. Patanjali's definition, yoga means to master the consciousness and the fluctuating thoughts inside. Now I am walking upon the path of prapti, of union. And when we say prapti, the Faridkoti Tika is very specific. It says Nitya Prapti Roop. Vaheguru is not lost. Prapti, if we talk about it as gaining something, doesn't mean that God is lost, that light is lost. Vaheguru is always there, even now. We say that God is closer to you than your hands and feet. Keh Ravdas haath pe nere sahaje hoye soye, Gurbani says. Bhagt Ravdas ji says. So what does this mean? This union, if we are not separated, what is the union? And to explain this, there is a story which a very wise, saintly Gorsek told me, that once a woman was wearing a bangle and she was about to do something in the house, so she pulled up the bangle up her arm, like sometimes we do with our kara, pulled it up to a point where it got stuck on the arm so it wouldn't come down and hinder her work. She does what she's doing and then she takes a rest. She gets up, she looks down at her arm, and the kara is covered by her clothes that she's wearing. The bangle is covered. She says, "Oh, I've lost my bangle, I've lost my bangle." She looks everywhere for it, she cannot find it. Then she asks the neighbor, "Have you seen my bangle?" The neighbor, under the cloth, sees it shining and says, "Pull up the cloth on your arm and look down." She pulls up the cloth on her arm and she sees her bangle is there. God is not far. We are the ones who are lost. So Vaheguruji is Nit Prapat, already there, but you have to learn that art, that yoga, that way of union. Rahao, pause and think about this. Kabeer Sahib Ji says, Gur dekhlai mori. How did I get to this? If you ask Kabeer Sahib Ji, how did you control this mind? How did you get this peace? How did you learn this path of union with Akal Purkh? Kabeer Sahib Ji says, it's not me, it is the Guru's grace. Gur dekhlai mori. The Guru, dekhlai, has shown me the mori, the holes through which, what happens? Jit mirg padta hai chori, through which the mirg, the deers, they enter inside me. Chori, stealthily, like thieves. These deers, how they walk inside and they graze upon my virtues. Now what are the deers? The deers have pretty unanimously been translated as Vishay. What are the Vishay? Vishaya Shabat Saparsh Roop Ras Gandh. Shabat, sound, Saparsh, touch, Roop, sight, Ras, taste, Gandh, smell. You may say, well, we use these all the time. When we misuse these, looking at the bodies of others, coveting the things of others, that is deers entering into us and messing up the garden of our heart. And the Guru showed me how these enter in. The Guru showed me where the gaps were in the fence of my heart. Then Kabeer Sahib Ji says, what did I do? The Guru told me, Moond liye darwaje. Moond means to close, darwaje means doors. I closed the doors. Now what does that mean? Does that mean simply that you close your eyes and that is it? What Sant Gurbachan Singh Ji says is that closing the doors means mastering yourself. How do you do that? Babaji gave a very beautiful quote from Bhai Gurdas Ji, from their Vara. Bhai Gurdas Ji says, Vadda vikarmi akhiye ti paino sangha. Bhai Gurdas Ji says, even people who are great adulterers, people who are full of lust, when they look at their daughter or their sister, then they feel shame, or they feel a feeling of honor. They don't feel lascivious towards them or lustful towards them. Now what Sant Gurbachan Singh Ji said is, the way you look at your own sister, that is how you should look at the sisters of others. That is closing up the doors. The way you feel upset when someone slanders you, that is how you should feel when someone slanders someone else. That is closing the door. The way you feel happy when someone sings your praises, when someone sings someone else's praises, you should feel that same happiness. That is closing up the doors. And what happens when you do this? Bajyale anhad bajye. Those bajye, those instruments, bajyale, start playing. Which instruments? Instruments which can be heard with these external ears? No. Anhad. Anhad, limitless, also means that which is not made from two things being struck together. That sound from which the whole world, the universe is, everything is created. You start experiencing that anhad naad. Kumbh kamal jal parya. The kumbh means like a small pitcher, a small glass, you could say, or small bucket. Within this kamal, within this, my heart, lotus, that pitcher, that bucket was full of water. What was the water? Of sins, vikar. But what happened when I closed these doors? When I followed what the Guru said? Jal metya ubba karya. I spilled out this water. Ubba karya. Ubba means to be upright. It also means to be facing upwards. I started facing upwards. Not looking down, facing upwards. This isn't talking about looking upwards, skywards. It means looking upwards, taking your thoughts higher. Chardi kala, that type of thought which we say in our ardas every day. I spilled out the water of my sins, not to look back down upon what I've spilled out, no, but to look upwards. Jal metya ubba karya. Kaho Kabeer jan janya. Kabeer Sahib Ji says, I have become your humble slave, your Jan. And I have Janya, I have known this. When I knew this, when I realized this, Jo Janya, when I realized this, To Man Manya. Then my mind accepted it and was pleased. Another meaning which Sant Gurbachan Singh gives this is, Jo Janya, when I realized all this which I've said in the Shabad, To Man Manya. Then Akal Purkh Ji accepted me. Kaho Kabeer jan janya, Jo janya to man manya. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.